I usually start my videos by showing you the cover of the game, and so this is what you get this time. The undiscussed protagonist of the cover of Rock Hard 1977, a game designed by real-life rock star Jakey Fox, and this game tells us the story of a beginning artist, a rock musician, who wants to make it into the big leagues. You start by still having I was going to say a real job, so a regular job, which may take place in different times of the day or the night, but also you are initially in your spare time trying to become a musician, and then maybe you will become a professional musician. In this game, you're going to play as one of several artists, and you have a nice range of possible artists here. And you will place the one that you end up being. For example, I'm Donovan Sterling, the romantic, androgynous guy. And you place that board here on this display. You will also have a randomly assigned job to you that will tell you which time of the day or night you have to perform it, how much it pays. You will have a manager, again, one of several options. And the manager, the rulebook says, is not your friend. The manager will give you a bonus, but you also have to pay them or is bad. And then you have several stats that you will record here, and of course the stats can go to 11 because otherwise we're not even covering the basics of rock. And so you may increase, and hopefully you will increase your chops, your reputation, your songs, and you will need to meet certain thresholds in order to have access to certain actions. Royalty, I swear, it took me for the longest time to realize that that doesn't mean becoming the queen or king of rock. It means royalties. And so if you have those, you will get money and you will get more fame. And those little stars, anything you see next to the start, again, is fame, also known as victory points. From time to time, our musicians will take candy. Candy will give you extra actions, just that boosts sometimes a new musician needs to be able to do everything and to be busy 24 hours a day. However, the more candy you take, the more you crave more candy. That sugar can be addictive, I tell you. And so there is a push your luck mechanic here. As you use candy, your craving goes up. You will need to roll a die, and if you roll less than your candy, you're fine. If you roll equal or more, then you get a bad sugar rush, and you will have to recover, which wastes you some time, but also reduces your craving. So there's that element there. You have life experience cards you receive at the beginning of the game, telling you what experiences shaped you before your ascent to stardom. And all that matters in terms of gameplay here are those icons. And yet, as you can see, there are generous flavored text on so many of the components. And the rulebook says quite explicitly that it's very important for you to create a biography of your character, to role play, to fill in the gaps. So the thematic element is very strong. You also have personal goals that will allow you to score victory points, because ultimately the game is very thematic, but winning is winning, and that is never bad. So, what happens? This is a worker placement game with one worker, and the worker is you, Donovan Sterling, in this example here. So we have a board, which I gotta tell you looks a bit busy, and it really is, but it's still functional because it represents different phases of your 24-hour day. The day, the night, and the after hour, because you don't always want to go to bed after hours. You want to do other stuff. And so it's a worker placement in which you will first place your character in one of the spaces of the phase that we're playing. And again, there are restrictions. Some spaces will be open to any number of players. Any number of players can recover, for example. Other spaces have requirements, say, for example, to hire for indie promo, then you need to have a record already, or also a record or a demo tape. In which case, for example, if I have the required elements, I would spend $3 and then I would gain the corresponding stats here. I could get an interview, which increases my popularity, doesn't cost anything, but that's what it is. I can go to the studio, pay money, and increase my chops. I can hire crew, which is tokens. They become increasingly more expensive, and they are simply required to access some other stuff. So those are for the main actions for the day, and now at night is when we play. Actually, remember that you have a job, and here, for example, again, I am a veterinary assistant, which gives me $2. It's not even bad. Other jobs will take place in different phases, some at night, some at variable times. Actually, this is a night, and this is after hours, and this is during the day. But that's the idea, is that it gives you money, but if you don't fulfill the requirements, so if you're not taking the action of doing your job when it's required, you get a strike against you, and if you get 3 strikes, you become a professional musician. You lose your regular job, and then you have to make it work from there. So there's that extra action, which gives you money, but also is not always available if you neglect it. Back to us, back to the night. You can go, and if you meet the requirements, so if you have enough songs, if you have enough chops, you can start playing in various places, which will give you different kinds of advantages. Each turn we also have a random gig, different places where you can go and play your music. And then we have the big events, which again have the biggest requirements. So as you can see, pretty much you start simple, you collect songs, chops, reputation, you hire people, that's for example when you need some crew, and then you get access to the bigger stuff, which will give you other advantages and also victory points. Then we have the so that's for the night, which again mainly is when the performances happen. You can also do some rehearsals. And then we have the after hours. Yeah, you can go to bed, but again, did you become a rock star so that then you can go home and drink chamomile and reading books? Well, I would, but then I'm not a rock star. You can record a demo, again, a requirement for certain things, or you can hang out, in which case you will place again the one worker that is you in the corresponding space, and you will take a card from the corresponding deck. So these are random events basically. You see these numbers next to them, they will also decide the order in which we go next turn, which is why if you go to bed earlier, you have the best chances of being first the following day, which may give you first pick for some day actions. If you go to these other spaces here, well, that again determines the order in which we go. So the higher the number, the later you'll go. You may also score some points, though, if you're going to particularly hot hangouts, as indicated there, which again means you'll go the other place particularly late. And then you collect a card, and you read it, and you do what it says. Also, once you are done resolving the event, you will place it in your personal supply together with those cards that you started with. Remember those life experiences? And they will score you points if you form sets of 4 of a kind or 4 different types. That's another way they will score you points. So that's the general idea. You also have actions you can potentially take at any given time, and those are up there. Buy or sell candy, which is represented by these tokens here. What do candies do? Well, you buy them or sell them using that action. Then when you're actually going to use them, you're going to draw a card from this, and it tells you if indeed the candy gives you 2 extra actions. It may also give you, it gives you only 1 extra action, or it turned out it was sugar-free and it doesn't give you anything. So again, a push your luck element here. And so when you take one action, you probably want to buy a lot of candy because it's just not efficient to spend one action and maybe get one action back or no actions whatsoever. So that's kind of the mechanic. So remember, there's a risk in buying candy this way, plus the cravings that you need to roll and see if you need to recover from that sugar rush. You can donate blood, which is an easy way to make money, but not super glamorous. You can also write a song. Again, one of the requirements you need to collect, because if you don't have your own songs, well, you're not gonna become all that famous. And then you can work, which again, depends on the time of the day. This is the general idea. You will play until the end of this magical year of 1977, and at the point you will, hopefully you will have scored some points already. There will be more points to be scored for each category here on your display. Where you reach the 11, you will score extra points because going to 11 is always sweet. There are other ways of scoring points indicated here possibly. Any end game scoring from your personal goals, that's when they happen. Also money, I mentioned that, and yes, this game has paper money. I dislike paper money as the next person, and yet somehow in this game I find it strangely tolerable for reasons I can't even explain to myself. But at the end of the game, each $3 that you still have buys you a victory point. The player with the highest score wins the game. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's a pretty big storm outside all of a sudden. Maybe talking about rock, that has something to do with the devil, and that's the punishment. I don't know, but this is the only time I had to film this segment, so I'm gonna go with it right now. So, Rock Hard 1977, this is one strange beast. It's really a strange game because it has all of the elements that we come to expect from medium / some heavy, more medium maybe, medium weight Eurogaming. We have the, of course, we have the worker placement with the unusual thing you only have one worker. Since the things, the actions can be taken mainly in a specific sequence, it almost feels like a rondel game also. Anyhow, so you're buying certain resources to unlock more resources, and you create an engine because when you start making money, then of course it's easier to get certain things. So you have what is usually a fairly tight, or we expect it to be, well, the storm is almost over, a pretty tight experience, so you can maximize and strategize. Then you have a considerable push or luck element actually, with some game effects that will come from the cards, but most importantly, the biggest luck of them all is with the actions that come from the sugar rush as you are rolling dice. And that's a really strange element there. You have an engine that it doesn't feel very elegant, but because you can tell that there are many actions, many aspects that have been put there to fit the theme, rather than the other way around, because we have so many Euro games that are designed around the engine and then they come up with whatever theme, and that's perfectly fine, different ways of designing the game. This again is a game that once, and I believe succeeds at being completely, deeply thematic, to really create a playable biography of a starting rock musician in the late 1970s. With the mechanics following that. This kind of commitment to theme usually I see in role-playing games, maybe in war games as well. So it's just unusual to have that. But I think in giving a really strong sense of the theme, the game is very successful. Because you're gonna do things in a certain way, and they really make sense from the point of view of the theme. You miss work, then you become a professional musician because you don't have a job anymore. The candy, the pluses or minuses that these people, I imagine, were experiencing with all the extra activities and the possibility of that. Of a crash, with the slow path toward notoriety, and then of course satisfaction playing some of the bigger gigs in the most popular places. So you really have a biography here, and again, all of these flavor text that you have, they feel so important. They do feel they really enhance the experience. And the rulebook really says it's okay if you miss some of the rules. It's okay, basically, if you don't play exactly like a tight Euro game, as long as you are role-playing the story and you're creating the backstory of this person and you're seeing where this person goes. So, paradoxically reminded me of some biographical simulators that I've seen in wargaming mainly, like Legion of Honor, where you create the biography of a Napoleonic soldier, or I, Napoleon, which you create the biography of Napoleon. So actually, this is the closest analogy that I can think of. That kind of games, more than, say, other Euro games with worker placement mechanics. And so, because of the theme, which I think is the strongest thing, again, I don't remember playing a game that feels like a Euro game and is so thematic, but then, of course, you also have some of the messiness of the design. Again, the push your luck, the rolling dice for the sugar, for other things such as the variable, the time in which you may have to work. There's just an element of randomness which feels bigger than you have in so many other games of this kind. The board, certain key actions are very limited, and so being locked out of some of those can have an impact. And I didn't see a lot of catch-up mechanics unless I'm missing this. If you start falling behind, there are people making increasingly more money and get more notoriety and get the better gigs. I didn't see a lot of ways of catching up with that, which again is perfectly fine. Is the point is we experience the magic, the challenge, the adventure, the risks of the rock scene of the 1970s, or we are playing a Euro game. So it's a little bit of a hybrid in that sense. I don't know that the replay value is going to be very big because you're going to go through a certain sequence every time. Start easy, start small, become bigger, and I don't see a lot of different ways to achieve that. So, as a highly thematic game that happens to be a Euro game, I think this is pretty successful. Again, I don't know that I'll play very often because of the possible replay value, but it's an experience. I'll describe that. This game is definitely an experience. Setting it up is a bit of a pain, but that happens. So, in essence, it's a very unique, very strange game that is satisfying to play probably once in a while, more than regularly, but definitely. If you set it up and if you give me a refresh of the rules, I'll play it again.